Good morning, Wesley Chapel Youth. I am trying to go live on Facebook and YouTube, so bear with me for just a moment. All right, I think I am live on both Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So good morning, Wesley Chapel Youth Group. My name is Anya Evinger, and I am a 7th and 8th grade Sunday school at Wesley Chapel. And I'm so excited to join you this morning. It's popular week 3. But before I get to that, I hope you guys have had a great start to summer break. I know that for me personally, there was something that switched psychologically. So like leading up to this, I was teaching from home, and that was just really different for me. And so it didn't feel right. It didn't feel normal. But as soon as grades were posted and my last meeting happened, there's something about me where it's okay to be home because it's summer break and I'm supposed to be home. So I hope that you guys are also enjoying summer break and the beginning of what's going to be a beautiful summer, a great year. And please continue lifting those impacted by COVID-19 up in prayer. We've got some people at church who've been impacted and they're doing well now, but just continue to pray for our community and pray for our country and pray for our world during the pandemic. So just because it's summer doesn't mean that the pandemic is over. It's just, like I said, there's that psychological switch for me. I don't have to do school at home anymore. A couple of things, just announcements that I wanted to let you know about what's going on at Wesley Chapel. So Wesley Chapel is meeting in person right now. You have to make a reservation if you and your family want to go. So make sure you get those reservations in earlier in the week. I think by Wednesday is the request. So if you'll make sure you get that in, and then you can worship during the 8:30 service or during the 11 o'clock service with the church community. We're going to continue doing Sunday school online for them offline. All right, so I love going on Facebook Live because it just seems so much easier. YouTube always kicks me off. Anyways, I think we're back online for both. So re-entry plan will include in-person gatherings at some point, but just not yet. I want to thank everybody who came out to support our seniors last Sunday. That was wonderful. I know the seniors really appreciated it, so thank you. On Wednesday night, Pastor Peter is doing a Bible study for youth on Zoom. And then on Friday night, remember there's the live game night. I think it's Jackbox that you guys use, and stream that on YouTube. So make sure you get connected, get involved, invite your friends. Okay, so let's talk about Popular. All right. I've shared some stories with you, but you're going to hear a little bit more about me in not so great of a light. I don't know. Maybe you'll think it's funny. Maybe it'll give you a chuckle today. But one of my families, by my family, I mean my husband and I, one of our favorite shows to watch is America's Funniest Home Videos, right? How many of you guys like those goofy video clips where people have an epic fail that's caught on camera and we all laugh at whatever happened, right? And my family has a few of those video clips and pictures too. I was looking for them in my picture box. However, most of them are digital now, so they're on Facebook. And if I get permission from Mary or Caleb, maybe I'll share them. But yesterday, I shared this picture of Mary with my family chat, and she had to have been, gosh, she must have been like 2 years old. Okay. She wasn't like really talking yet. She was definitely walking, but she is standing at the top of the stairs holding her pacifier out, and she is covered. And I mean like covered in this black stuff. And it's all clown that doesn't know how to draw a clown lip, but you know, like all over her mouth and all over the front of her and all over her legs. And I forgot about this until it popped up on my Facebook memories, but Mary had gotten into our makeup and had tried to put mascara on, but she didn't realize it goes on your eyes. She tried to put it on her lips like lipstick. And for those of you who don't know what mascara is, it's what we use on our eyelashes to try to make them pop a little bit. And And so I texted it out to the family group, and Mary handled it so well. She was like, "It's not my fault. I'm always gorgeous and trying something new." Like, of course. But those memories, like I have a picture of Caleb somewhere where he has dumped out a whole Lucky Charms box, right? Like Lucky Charms box, and he ate all the marshmallows. And he's like sitting there like, who? Me? I didn't do it. So even though we like to watch the America's Funniest Home Videos, we all have those stories about funny things that we've done in our past, right? And I've got those stories too. So I've told on Caleb and Mary. I'm going to tell on myself a little bit too. But I think we can all agree that sometimes embarrassing moments can be really funny to watch, right? When someone falls down in public or says the wrong word during a speech or trips in front of a room full of people, we just can't help it. Something about that stuff is just so funny, and we can't help but laugh. So I've got so many funny stories, but the funny story I'm supposed to tell is one that like defines me. Okay. So I'm going to tell one where nobody witnessed. Well, I think a couple people witnessed, but we never talked about it. And I'm also going to tell one where everybody witnessed and I never lived it down until we moved away. So when I was in elementary school, probably like first or second grade, at Sunday school in church or children's church, we were sitting, I was in my pretty dress, and I got up to do something, and somebody asked me a question, and I answered them. And I was really into American Girl dolls at the time, and I forget which one I was reading. I think it was Felicity, but they were all about curtsying and how curtsying was a proper way to show respect, right? So I decided to curtsy with my response. So I responded and I curtsied, and in the process of curtsying, I lifted up my skirt and showed my panties, and everybody laughed. And everybody talked about it. And the next week, I was that girl who lifted up her skirt. I didn't mean to like lift up my skirt and show everybody. Like I was 6, 7 years old. I was just trying to curtsy. I had been reading about curtsying and I wanted to curtsy too. But that's what defined me for a little bit. That's what everybody knew me as. And it was really embarrassing. There's another time Mary asked me a question recently about the first time that maybe I had ever cussed. And so I shared with her the first time I accidentally cussed. If you know the Allstotts, my family, you know that we're often late to things. And I was running late to swim practice. It was like a summer swim practice, or maybe it was after school. I don't remember. But I was running late and I was in a hurry. Everybody had pretty much cleared the locker rooms and gone to the swimming pool, but there were a few stragglers. And in my rush, I accidentally went into the boys' locker room. And under my breath, I accidentally said a cuss word. I'd never cussed before. I was 13 years old. I was in 7th grade, never cussed before. And under my breath, I said a cuss word because I walked into the boys' locker room, and that was mortifying. And so I walked back out into the hallway and cried. I just bawled. And nobody witnessed that. Like, that isn't a moment that people made fun of me for, but it is a moment that I still remember very vividly and have talked about since then. But isn't it funny the way those things work? Like, you do something one time in your life and suddenly that becomes the thing you might be known for at school or on your team, or in my case, at church, just about everywhere you go. In even the smallest way, it shapes people's opinions of you. And in a way, our ability to influence other people works the same. Remember, influence is the ability to have an effect on someone else, to impact things like their behavior, or thoughts, or choices, or words. While we have a tendency to believe that something like influence is reserved for the people who are known or popular or kind of a big deal, the reality is we all have the potential to influence other people, for better or for worse. And because of that, we all have the same potential to lose that influence. Maybe you know someone right now who used to have a lot of influence. They were known for being friendly and funny and a person who tried to make good choices. but then they got caught maybe drinking at a party or cheating on a test, spreading that nasty rumor about a friend. And just like that, their influence was gone. Now, instead of being known for all the good things they've done, they're simply known for the one big bad decision they made. Or maybe you know this is true because it's happened to you. You were the kid who showed up every week to church, who always got straight A's, who had lots of friends, or who was a leader on your team. But one bad decision, one moment, one choice, one experience, and suddenly your reputation changed. Now people look at you and only see that bad decision. And because of that, you feel like you can't show up at church or at school or on the team or even with your friends. But here's the deal. Those big decisions, those things we do that are open and obviously not good choices, they definitely have the power to cost us our influence. But you know what else does? The small, more secret things we do that don't seem like that big of a deal at the time. The harsh way you speak to your siblings, the way you yell at your teammates in the locker room, the secrets you share about your friends when they aren't around, the guy you're dating who you know isn't good for you, the way you look down or judge the people in your small group. All those little things can add up over time. The more you do them, the more likely you are to become known as someone who does them. And the more likely you are to lose the influence you have over those people around you. When we put it this way, it sounds like a real bummer, doesn't it? You make bad choices, big or small. And just like that, your influence is gone. Your ability to be anyone other than a person who makes bad choices is over. You're stuck, and you'll never be able to get things back the way they used to be. Well, here's the good news. All that may feel like it's true, but trust me when I tell you that it isn't. No matter who you are or what you've done or how you feel like it's impacted the way people see you and your ability to influence others, there's a way for things to be different. There's a way to find the influence that you think is lost forever. I know this is true because I've seen it happen in my own life, sure. Talk to my mom about that one. But also in the life of one of the most important people in the history of the Christian faith, a guy named Peter. Now, Peter was one of Jesus' 12 disciples. The disciples were a group of guys who followed Jesus. They learned from him, and they lived life closely with him. They were a part of his ministry here on earth. But Peter wasn't just any disciple. He actually was one of the three men who had the closest relationship with Jesus. He was one of Jesus' most trusted friends. Peter loved Jesus, and when Jesus left earth after his death and resurrection, Peter became one of the men who carried his message and spread Christianity around the world as a leader in the early church. When Christians talked about Peter now, they talk about all the amazing things he did to grow the church and see more and more people believe in Jesus. They talk about what big and bold and amazing faith he had. They talk about his influence. But here's what's interesting. Peter wasn't always that guy. Luke, one of Jesus' other disciples, wrote down a story in his account of Jesus' life on earth, the book of the Bible we know as Luke. You guys are so smart. That shows us a different side of Peter. This amazing leader with so much influence in the church. Well, at one point, he did something so bad that he almost lost it all. Where we pick up the story, Jesus had just been arrested and was about to be put on trial for his life. This was the beginning of the end for Jesus. Or at least that's what everybody thought. And because they followed Jesus so closely, the disciples were afraid that this was the beginning of the end for them too. If Jesus had just been arrested and had his life on the line, wouldn't the same be true for the people that were closest to him? As all of this unfolded, Peter followed Jesus to find out where he'd been taken. But because he was afraid for his own life, Peter also hid himself amongst the crowd, trying to blend in so that he wouldn't get noticed as a follower and friend of Jesus. Here's what happened. We're going to turn to the book of Luke, chapter 22, verse 56. And I think today I'm going to read from my NIV Bible that I got as a senior in high school. Since our seniors are graduating, we'll honor them. So remember that Luke is in the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, written by the disciple Luke, going to chapter 22, verses 56 and 57. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. Do you catch what Peter did there? One of the most trusted friends, loyal followers, and closest servants of Jesus just straight up lied about being any of those things. He denied even knowing Jesus at all. This is like your best friend, your BFF who knows all your secrets, is first on your Snapchat list, and is the number one person on your group text. How many streaks you got going on right now? Completely and totally dropping you in front of everybody. That's terrible, right? I don't know about you, but that's certainly not the way I would think one of the most influential leaders in the Christian faith would act. Shouldn't a guy who's so important in the history of the church be a guy who stood up for what he believed in? And the story goes from bad to worse. 2 more people came up to Peter in the crowd and asked him if he knew Jesus. And 2 more times, Peter denied knowing him at all. Right then and there, you'd think the potential for Peter to ever have any influence as a Christian would be lost. I mean, he denied even knowing the guy who all of the Christian faith centers on. How could somebody who does that ever gain back the influence they've lost? Well, good news. Because of Jesus. You see, Jesus doesn't allow our mistakes to be the end of our story. Did Peter mess up here? Yes, big time. Did he feel awful about it? Yes, he did. Luke went on to tell us that Peter went outside and wept over what he had done. He knew just how big and bad and costly those lies were, not just to his influence, but also to his relationship with Jesus. But that's the thing about Jesus. He doesn't see our mistakes the same way we do. He knows our sins are forgiven. And when we come to him honestly, he offers us the forgiveness we need to start over. Then we can begin gaining back the influence we thought was gone for good. That's exactly what he did for his pal Peter. And you probably know the story didn't seem like it ended all that well at first. Jesus was killed, and his followers, Peter included, didn't really know what to do next. They were afraid, they were unsure, and so very lost without their leader. But then 3 days later, Jesus rose from the dead. He came back to life, which is pretty amazing, am I right? And one of the first things he did was find his friends and followers, including Peter. In another account of Jesus' life on earth, the book of John, we find out what Jesus said to Peter when they were reunited. So guess who wrote John? You're right, the disciple John. We're going to turn to John chapter 21, verse 15. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So it's the next book in the Bible after Luke in the New Testament. Verse 15. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?" Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. With his very first question, Jesus was giving Peter a chance to change the story, to right the wrong, to be more than his mistakes, to gain back his influence. And this time around, Peter got it right. 3 times Jesus asked Peter if he loved him, and 3 times Peter confirmed his love for Jesus. He said, 1, I love you, for every time he denied Jesus. And Jesus' response? Well, it wasn't a call to take care of like actual sheep, because that would be kind of weird, right? It was a command to take care of the people who will follow him. In the same way sheep follow a shepherd as their leader, believers in Jesus follow Jesus. So by asking Peter to feed his lambs, Jesus was asking Peter to take care of his followers. He was asking Peter to tap back into his influence and use it to change the world through the message of Jesus. Jesus saw Peter as so much more than just his mistakes. And the good news is that he sees us the very same way. No matter what we've done in the past, we have permission to love and follow Jesus right here in the present. Our mistakes and sins have been paid for. We can ask God for the forgiveness Jesus bought for us. And because we're forgiven, we can move forward on a new path, step by step, gaining back the influence that we may feel like we lost. Jesus doesn't allow our mistakes to be the end of our story. Just like Peter, you can receive grace and forgiveness. How your story has gone before doesn't have to be the way it goes into the future. You can take a step toward Jesus and a step toward regaining some of the influence you feel like you've lost. To start, I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, ask yourself what may be causing you to lose influence. Take a minute to think about the choices you might be making, big or small, that are impacting your ability to influence others for good. Is it who you're dating? Is it the things you post on social media? Is it the way you speak to other people? Is it your attitude on or off the field? What about that party that you went to? The secret behaviors you think nobody knows about? Whatever it is, acknowledge what big or small choices might be chipping away your influence. Number 2, confess it to God. Be honest with God about it. Tell him what you're struggling through and ask for his forgiveness and believe that you've received it. Let that moment be the first step in rewriting the story of your influence. And number 3, take 1 step in the right direction. Take 1 small step toward gaining back the influence you think may be lost. Maybe that means apologizing to someone you've wronged, or putting up boundaries in a relationship, or changing the way you talk to other people, or asking your small group leader to help you stay on the right path. Take 1 small step this week in the right direction, and next week, take another. Remember, those small steps over time will lead to a bigger and better influence in the long run. So when I was in high school, probably my senior year, maybe the summer after my senior year, my dad, if you don't know who he is, he's the minister of Wesley Chapel, Tony Allstott, and I had a conversation. And it was one of those conversations where he really only said one thing and then it was silent, but so much was said in that one sentence. I had been caught making a bad decision, and he said, you can spend 18 years building up your reputation, and one 30-second decision can tear it all down. All that hard work you did can be lost. And that really resonated with me. But then I was listening to a podcast later that week, and It was about finances, but it really applied to every aspect of my life at the time. And it was, your situation gets better or worse with your next decision. It's kind of like in sports when we don't look at all four quarters of a basketball game, right? We only look at one at a time, and we only look at one play at a time, kind of like a football game. You only pick one play at a time. And so when we feel overwhelmed with the choices we've made, you have to remind yourself that your situation gets better or worse with your next decision. Every decision you make either puts you closer to your goal or farther away from your goal, no matter what that goal is, whether it's your influence and being kind, or maybe it's a health goal or a financial goal, but your situation gets better or worse with your next decision. Remember that Jesus doesn't allow our mistakes to be the end of our story. I'm so grateful for that. We are more than the sum of our mistakes. And as you go on to worship today or about your week, I want you to remember this question and think about it. What's one thing in my life that may be causing me to lose influence? What's one thing in my life that may be causing me to lose influence? Is it your social media presence? Is it your words, your actions, the way you treat other people? If you're in my middle school girls small group, I'll be texting you this week to see what your response is. I hope that you guys can join Pastor Peter on Wednesday, and I hope that you join our game night on Friday night. I do want to let you know that I still pray for you. I may not be able to go around the room and ask you by name what to be in prayer for, but I am still praying for each of you. And I hope that you are enjoying summer break. And those of you who are 8th graders getting ready to move on to the high school class, we'll have to celebrate in person when we're allowed to meet again. But for now, I'm glad that I still get to share Sunday school with you virtually. Will you please pray with me? Heavenly Father, I thank you so much that we are not the sum of our mistakes, but Lord, that we are purified by you, Lord, that you offer us grace and forgiveness, and you allow us to seek you and to change our influence on others for good. God, I pray for each student at Wesley Chapel. I pray that you would keep them healthy, that you would continue to help their faith journey to thrive at Wesley Chapel. And we're just so grateful for all that you've done for us, Jesus, for dying on the cross, for the resurrection. God, we're so grateful that we know the story of you and that we get to be your sheep and we get to follow you. I pray that you would bless each person who listens to this message and shares in the love of you. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right. I'm sorry that I didn't come live to you yesterday. I forgot. It's a new routine that I'm just not into yet. So on Saturday, this Saturday, May 30th, I think is the date, I will be coming to you live at 4. I'm going to ask my family to remind me so that I don't forget this time. I hope you all have a blessed week. I miss you all. I can't wait until we get to be in person. Love you. Praying for you. Goodbye.